At the beginning of the story shows a man named Takuma Toshiro who is being interviewed by a presenter. It is known that Toshiro is a former Japanese Special Forces officer who is now an actor. In the interview, Toshiro said that he really liked action movies, but what makes Toshiro bored, sometimes his co-stars do not have basic martial arts skills. Then Toshiro also mentioned movie producers who take actors carelessly, so that the resulting movie is so very bad. It turns out that since this interview, Toshiro hasn't been invited to play in movies by producers until Toshiro finally got stuck. 10 years later, the scene switches to a filming place and shows the actors in action. It turns out that for this movie, one of the actors is Toshiro. Then when it was Toshiro's turn to act, it seemed that Toshiro wasn't excited because his co-star was so soft. After that, one of the crew named Tony approached Toshiro and scolded Toshiro because Toshiro was lazy. Tony also said that Toshiro was indeed a good actor, but that was 10 years ago. Now Toshiro has to comply with what he says, because if not, Toshiro will be fired immediately. Then when Toshiro retake the scene again, Toshiro failed to comply with Tony and the producer's wishes. In the end, Toshiro had to be fired. A few months later, it shows Toshiro talking to one of his friends named Akira. Here, Toshiro invites Akira to make an action movie that looks like real, and Toshiro was sure the movie would be a big success. Hearing that, Akira agreed with Toshiro's idea, and he was ready to help make the movie a success. Then Toshiro gave a gun to Akira and told Akira to shoot Toshiro as a simulation. At first Akira refused, but Toshiro kept insisting. Until this is Toshiro's action. With Toshiro's skills as a former Special Forces, it turns out that Toshiro is very easy to avoid shots. Then, when Toshiro took turns shooting Akira, Akira was scared because he couldn't possibly dodge the shot, but here Toshiro says that this gun is actually a toy gun. The next day, Toshiro and Akira went to a movie producer named Mr. Kanda. This is the person. It turns out that the two of them asked Mr. Kanda to become the producer of their movie. But when Mr. Kanda saw the financial data that would be used in the movie, Mr. Kanda immediately refused because the amount of money was so very small. When Mr. Kanda wanted to leave, Toshiro and Akira begged Mr. Kanda to help them. In the end, Mr. Kanda was willing to help as long as Toshiro had a good location to shoot the movie, and Mr. Kanda asked Toshiro to check the filming location first. Then scene moved to an abandoned factory on a remote island, and the factory had just stopped operating a few years ago. It then shows Toshiro and Akira, who went to the factory to check the location there before being used as a filming location. Shortly after that, Toshiro and Akira saw several people who were filming to be uploaded to YouTube. It turned out that one of the crew was Tony, the person who had fired Toshiro. Here, Tony asks why Toshiro came to this place, and Toshiro replied that he was also going to make a movie. Then Tony cheekily introduced his producer while mocking Toshiro. If he wanted to make a movie, Toshiro should also have a producer. But not long after that, Tony's producer was suddenly shot by a stray bullet. It turns out that on the other side, some yakuza members are shooting. Then we will be introduced to a girl named Mary who was being held as hostage by her own uncle, named Takenouchi, who is a high-ranking yakuza. Meanwhile, some yakuza members accidentally caught Toshiro downstairs. Until this is the action. Toshiro could beat all the yakuza members who were there. Seeing this action, Akira, Tony, and the others were very impressed. But here Tony and his friends decide to escape immediately, while Toshiro and Akira will still here. The scene returns to Mary, who is now being interrogated by her uncle right behind the factory. It is known that Mary is the biological daughter of a yakuza boss who is so highly respected. Unfortunately, her father passed away a few days ago, so it is her uncle who currently holds and takes the power. Then at the same time, Toshiro and Akira arrived, and Toshiro immediately taken down them. Now the tables are turned, as the uncle and his men are now hostages. After that, Mary told Toshiro and Akira about what really happened. It turns out that before Mary's father, who was the head of the yakuza, died, her father had told her that the yakuza's stock of illegal stuff was stored on this island. No one of the yakuza members were told, except Mary. That's why the yakuza want to take Mary as hostage, so that Mary tells where the stock of illegal stuff is stored. And Mary was sure that if they were told, then Mary would be killed immediately. Then Toshiro asked, how much is the stock of illegal goods? And Mary answered that the goods were 3 tons. On the other hand, Tony and some of his friends seemed to have run far enough, until they met a woman named Amy. Then when one of Tony's friends approached Amy, he was suddenly stabbed with a sharp object. It turns out that Amy is a very cruel person, and she came here to arrest Mary. Seeing Amy's cruelty, Tony and his other friends immediately ran away, but apparently they were already surrounded. Then Tony and his 2 remaining friends tried to go the other way, and fortunately the group let Tony go and will finish him when after they catch Mary. Then we are introduced to the leader of this group named Shishido, and Shishido is Amy's biological father. It is known that Shishido is also a yakuza member from another clan who wants to catch Mary in order to get her illegal stuff. Long story short, when Shishido's group entered the factory, they were shocked when they saw Mary's uncle and several of his men tied up. Then Amy tried to interrogate the uncle to ask where Mary was. The helpless uncle finally tells him that Mary was taken by a very tough man, but the uncle was sure that Mary was still in the factory area. After knowing this, Shishido's group killed the uncle and his men without hesitation. On the other hand, Mary, Toshiro, and Akira, who saw their brutality, finally decided to hide on top of the factory. Meanwhile, Shishido instructs all his men to split up and immediately catch Mary alive. The scene returns to Toshiro, who is in a place he feels safe. Here Toshiro asks Mary and Akira to stay hidden, while he will fight Shishido's group. But just as Toshiro left, Akira appeared, who intended to record Toshiro's actions using his cell phone secretly. After that, it shows some of Shishido's men who are scattering, until one by one they began to be eliminated by Toshiro alone. After subverting them, Toshiro takes their communication radio and starts communicating with Shishido and Amy. Here, Toshiro says that he has always wanted to be as brutal as he is now. Shishido and Amy then ask if Toshiro is a law enforcer or a yakuza who also wants illegal stuff. Toshiro replies that he is an actor who should be more famous than Jackie Chan. After that, Toshiro went in another direction until he had to deal with some of Shishido's men again. Until at some point Toshiro found a wrench and immediately made it a weapon. It seems that even though he is only armed with a wrench, Toshiro can easily fight them. After they fell, Toshiro deliberately cut their ankles so they could no longer move. Then Toshiro took a flashlight from them because Toshiro was sure he would definitely need it. The scene switches to Tony and his 2 remaining friends. As they reach the end of the island, Tony's 2 friends think that there is nowhere for them to hide. Plus, the pickup from outside the island will be the day after tomorrow. Then Tony's 2 friends decided to return to the factory and meet with Toshiro. Meanwhile, Tony himself is still confused about what to do. 20 minutes later, it shows Mary, who is alert because she hears someone. Until at the same time, Mary was calmed by Akira, who suddenly appeared from behind. Then Mary immediately thanked him and asked him not to be left alone again. Then the 2 of them chatted together and got to know each other. After that, they were both surprised by the arrival of someone, but when Akira checked, it turned out that they were 2 of Tony's friends. In the end, Akira was able to calm down, then left Mary to Tony's 2 friends, while he is about to leave again. The scene moves to Toshiro, who will now face dozens of Shishido's men. And here's Toshiro in action. One by one, Toshiro is able to subvert them easily, even though he only uses a flashlight. After flattening them, Shishido finally appeared, and he was shocked because dozens of his men were now lying on the ground. Then Shishido caught sight of Toshiro, but Toshiro quickly moved away. Elsewhere, Amy, Shishido's daughter, asks one of the guards if this factory has been abandoned for a long time. The guard replied that as far as he knew, the factory had just closed a few years ago. Amy then borrowed a match from the guard and threw the match straight into the chimney. It turned out that as a result of lighting the chimney, several of Shishido's men had to die, including injuring Shishido's face. After the incident, Shishido and one of his men accidentally found a cell phone lying around. Shishido's men immediately checked it, and it turned out that it was Toshiro's cell phone that had been held by Akira. But at the same time, Toshiro suddenly appeared from behind, and a fight ensued. Unfortunately, on one occasion, Shishido threw a grenade, until finally he could escape. The scene returns to Mary, who is now with two of Tony's friends. As they try to find a safer place, they accidentally run into Shishido's right-hand man and his men. Here, Tony's two friends try to fight back, but unfortunately, they were both immediately pointed at with guns. Then at the same time, Tony suddenly appeared to save them. After one person was overthrown, they now had to deal with Shishido's right hand. It turns out that Tony and his two friends are not good enough to fight Shishido's right hand. Then when Shishido's right-hand man wanted to finish off Tony's friend, Mary immediately begged him not to do it. And Mary was willing to comply with all the wishes of Shishido's right-hand man. In short, Amy came to them. Here, Mary, who knew Amy's cruelty, begged Amy not to kill Tony and his two friends. Hearing this, Amy replied that she wouldn't kill them, as long as Mary told her where the illegal stuff were. Mary then took them to a warehouse next to the factory. When they were inside the warehouse, Amy asked again where the illegal stuff were. Mary replied that her father only told her the place. As for the details, Mary had no idea. At the same time, Shishido comes up to them. Here, Amy says that she believes Mary's father is just lying to them because the illegal stuff are actually not in this place. Then Shishido immediately tortured Mary, because who knew Mary was the one who lied to them. Seeing this, Amy asked her father to stop. But the father continued to torture Mary, until this is what Amy did. She also gave up his own father by slashing Shishido's palm. After Shishido's hand was injured, Amy said that her father should have listened to Amy's words. It turns out that Amy wants to make Mary as her friend, and will make Mary a brutal person like her. Not long after, they were all surprised by Toshiro's arrival. Here, Amy asks if Toshiro also wants the illegal stuff too, and Toshiro answered no. Then Amy asked again, did Toshiro want to be a hero to save Mary? And again Toshiro said no. Then Amy told the right hand to fight Toshiro, because actually this right hand was tougher than Shishido. After that, the fight ensued between Toshiro and the right hand man. Until one day, Shishido was bored of seeing their fight. Finally, Shishido intended to shoot Toshiro from behind. But when the shot was fired, it turned out that the shot hit the right hand and also shot the roof. Here Shishido, who had accidentally shot at the roof, now finally knows where Mary's father hid the stuff. After that, Toshiro approached Amy. But Amy quickly took a gun and pointed it at Toshiro. At the same time, Akira appeared, who was recording. Akira said that he was so impressed with Toshiro and hoped that Toshiro would not finish Amy off. Then Akira wanted to try dodging shots like Toshiro used to demonstrate, but unfortunately, not having time to dodge, Amy could finish Akira off. Seeing that, Toshiro was certainly angry, and this is Toshiro's action. He can dodge all the bullets fired by Amy, just like when he dodged Akira's shots at the beginning of the story. When Toshiro wanted to finish off Amy, that's when the shocking thing happened, because all the brutality on this island was a movie scene. Then Mr. Kanda, who is a film producer, is very impressed with Toshiro's impressive role. Then Toshiro told Mr. Kanda that Akira shouldn't be made to die in this movie scene, because after all, Akira is one of the main actors. Hearing that, Mr. Kanda said that there was no Akira, because Akira is just an illusion or fantasy of Toshiro. Then we are told that all the brutality on this island is real and not a movie scene. This means that Mr. Kanda and all the film crews that we saw earlier were the delusions of Toshiro, because Toshiro is now accidentally inhaling illegal stuff. Then when Toshiro wanted to actually finish off Amy, Mary immediately asked Toshiro to stop it. After that, Toshiro asked Tony and his two friends about where Akira was. It turns out that Akira was indeed an illusion of Toshiro from the beginning, and Akira never really existed. Then we are shown from Toshiro, who came to this island by himself. Toshiro also met Mr. Kanda at the restaurant alone. Even when Mary asked Akira not to leave her, it was actually Toshiro, not Akira. Then at the end of the story shows Toshiro, who is revealing the script of the movie story to Mr. Kanda. That is the story of brutality on the island yesterday. This means that the story on the island yesterday was the script for their movie. But it must be known that the incident is actually a true story that Toshiro experienced a few months ago. For this reason, Toshiro will make the story into a movie plot taken from a true story according to Toshiro's own experience. And along with that, the movie ended.